Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Hello and welcome to the Skeptic Zone, episode number 112 for the, well, make up your mind, I'll make up my mind, it's probably the 11th of December, depending on what part of the world you're in. It could be the 12th. It's very confusing. I'm in the United States at the moment, so time zones and jet lag are all playing their part. Never mind, here we are. Now, on this week's episode, we have an interview with George Hrab, the singer-songwriter, skeptical bloke who came over to Sydney for the amazing meeting and did a big tour of Australia and New Zealand while he was at it. Following that, a short song by George from one of his live concerts from Melbourne. After that, the welcome return of Dr. Rachie reports all about a talk she went to about vaccination. Gee, I wonder what that's going to be like. And following that, the return of the think tank with special guest Fred Bremmer all the way from Vancouver, Canada. Now, in the coming weeks, we have many interviews lined up for you from TAM Australia, conducted by our very own Maynard. Fantastic interviews. I've had a sneak peek, a sneak listen, and you're in for a treat. They really are top-notch. Also, I'll be running around with my microphone here in the Bay Area, hunting out skeptics and interesting people around San Francisco to see what I can bring you from this little corner of the world. But for now, sit back, grab that nice cup of freshly brewed coffee, and enjoy the Skeptic Zone.
Just desserts. I hope you'll stick around for seconds and maybe thirds. For seconds and maybe thirds. For seconds and maybe thirds.
TAM Australia just doesn't want to end, ladies and gentlemen. It's already the 10th of December, but I'm lucky enough to be in a room here with George Hrab, who has just been. He doesn't know what state, country, time zone, anything he's in anymore.
Nope. Although I'm starting to recognize airports now, which is the scariest bit. That as I walk through these airports, I'm starting. Oh yeah, this is the one with the Christmas tree in the middle. Oh, this is the one that has the snack bar over here.
Now, since I saw you last, you were at TAM Australia, of course.
Yes.
Then you disappeared.
Yes.
No, actually, I caught up with you in Melbourne after that.
Right. I went to Brisbane.
Then
I went to Melbourne.
Yeah.
Then went to New Zealand. Did Christchurch. Yeah. Did Auckland. Yeah. Came back. Did Adelaide.
Yeah.
Then did Canberra.
Yeah.
And then I've just come back from 3 days in Cairns.
Wow.
Yeah. Warm. Nice, though. Yeah, nice.
Warm.
Not as humid as I thought it would be. People were warming me that, like, oh, it's humid, it's crazy. And it was, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be.
It's been humid here.
Really?
In Sydney. Terrible. Yeah. But I saw a great clipping out of the Adelaide newspaper.
Yeah.
How about that?
Go figure, you know? Yeah, this a fan of the show is a reporter, a fan of the Geologic Podcast.
Yeah.
He got in touch and said, can we talk? I said, sure. He brought a photographer and everything.
Nice picture.
Like,
nice picture.
Bunch of cool ones. So
the angle of the story was your fans really made this trip for you.
Right.
Yeah.
That it was totally driven by people that listen to the show. Completely. That, I said, I'm going to be in this part of the world. If you want to see me, get in touch. And it worked out. We got 6 shows out of it, which were, each one was unique and better than the last and worse than the last in its own way. Each one had its own little character. And the one you were at in Melbourne was the biggest audience. That was about 150 people or so, they figured.
Something like that, yeah.
Which was, I said it at the show. I mean, I have gigs across the street from me back in the States that 10 people show up to. So to be on the other side of the world and have 150 of my friends, it was just crazy. And so the response was really good. And It's surreal. It's surreal, and it's all because of the whole skepticism thing, and you're working on TAM and all that, and it's led to it. So it was neat the angle he took talking about luck, because I sort of said that I'm very lucky, and this wasn't quite included in the article, but I talked about all the sort of things that had to happen for me to end up in Adelaide talking to him, being interviewed. That I had to name my website Geologic Records, so that when people from DragonCon saw it, they would think I was a geologist who would ask me to do a lecture on geology, and I agreed to do it. And then Jeff Wagg saw that, who then said, "You should come to TAM and do some songs." And then I went to TAM, and that worked out well. And then I met all you guys, and all of the cogs that have to line up. So it is luck, but not really luck, because you have to sort of build on your luck as it comes along.
The first time I met you was TAM 6.
Yes.
And we shared a panel or a question and answer thing.
Yes, the very last. I have a picture of that. I call it the Skeptic's Last Supper. I have a great picture.
Adam Savage,
Savage,
Randy,
Steve Novella, Banachek,
Randy, Randy, I said that. Lots of people.
Yeah. Which is great. Someone took a picture of it, and it's just it's just this nice, long, Da Vincian kind of...
Yeah.
Oh, it's great. Really, really
Talking
cool.
about pictures, some of the pictures that we've been getting back from fans from TAM Australia, just mind-blowing.
Well, that room was so cool that you could... You really felt like you were on top of the speakers. We're used to TAM Vegas, which is this massive airplane hangar that's flat.
Yes.
But here, with the audience kind of right on top in tears... It just felt
literally.
Literally, right. Yeah, well, my jokes, my puns, leaves them in tears. But I don't know. It just felt like it was this community thing.
It really did, because when you and I were shared the stage at one stage to deliver the predictions, but you didn't have to look far into the distance to make eye contact with anybody.
Right.
They were all right there. And not to say that the room was small, because it wasn't. It's just the way it was laid out was very good.
Yeah, it just felt like we were signing some legislation or something, some parliament kind of thing. It was nice. It was really great.
And so you're expected to be at TAM 9, I would imagine.
I believe so. I think things are in the works. Nothing official yet, but I will go regardless of whether I'm there officially or not.
Well, that's the story, isn't it? I will go, certainly, regardless of whatever I may or may not be doing.
Right. You have to.
It's fantastic. But we've just been getting such lovely comments back from people who've been to other TAMs and saying this one was right up there.
People have asked me what was different about this one, and there was a vibe difference that I sensed that was positive. That I think it reflected. I don't want to talk too much, but it reflected some of the Australian character in terms of friendliness. I don't know if that's an oversimplification or what, but it was more because the American TAM can be a little vitriolic sometimes. The Vegas TAM are a little bit pointed, which is fun in its own way. That can be a lot of fun being snarky. TAM London. The one that I went to was a little bit more, maybe not reserved, but more almost educational or sort of more decorum. And
that was the first one?
That was the first one, yeah. So I didn't go to this last one, but this to me just had this sense of, I sort of said, Vegas says, things are really messed up in the world. And boy, what are we going to do? Australia said, things are really messed up in the world, but we can make a difference. Yeah. That was the vibe I got. Maybe not a huge difference, but a little bit of a difference. The anti-vax thing, all Rebecca Watson talked about, using Twitter to get a major movie chain to not show ads.
That's right.
That's major. Twitter, we all appreciate that Twitter is a complete waste of time. Like, we all know that. We all we use it, but we tacitly agree that, for the most part, it's pretty silly. And yet, here was an example of a perfect use of it, where the Twitter minions were put to work, and we stopped something that could really damage people's lives from being presented in a major movie chain. It's amazing.
It is. I mean, I agree with you. A lot of Twitter is silly fun.
Yeah.
And
there's room for that. There's nothing wrong with that.
And I think that's wonderful if that's what you want to do. But when you really need something, Twitter is. The world hasn't seen anything like it.
Right. And to start, that was one of the first talks. I think that was on Friday. About the effectiveness. Yeah, right. Whatever that was. But to start off everything with that was kind of like, hey, we can do something. We're not, yes, we're fighting back, waves and waves of non-critical thinking, but in this little corner, we made a difference, and that was nice, and I think that energized people. I know. Pamela Gay's talk also. People afterwards were just so energized.
A lot of comments about that, about Pamela's talk.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see it on the DVD because I was too busy running around fixing this.
Yeah, I caught the last 10 minutes. That was it. But people just said that her attitude fit perfectly with the attitude of TAM Australia, and how it was just people wanted to go do stuff afterwards, and that's the best kind of a reaction.
I think that one of the things that TAM Australia also did was it was like continually being punched in the head by a feather bag, in a nice way. In other words, you didn't have time to stop and relax. It was just, here's the next thing, and it's all good and it's all fun.
Yeah. Nothing like, I'm going to skip this. I don't want. Everything was like, I can't catch that because I have to do this over here. I got an interview. I got to talk to that. I'm going to miss it. And that's really special and really unique, I think, for this. So I hope it can happen again. I don't know what city or where or who's going to organize it, but
neither do I.
I don't want to bring that up. I know this is a sore subject. But.
So what's next on the lineup for George Hrab? I mean, obviously, you're going to go home and sleep for a week.
Yes,
probably.
I think I'm going to stay straight up tonight and maybe sleep on the plane and try to fool myself into not realizing I have a 20-hour
You going straight
flight.
back to Bethlehem?
Well, I have a stopover in Toronto, I believe, for just a couple hours. Okay. So I think it's like 14 in Toronto and then like another 3 or 5.
It'll be longer than 14 to Toronto.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, because it was 14 to Vancouver. So anyway,
it's a long time.
It'll be fine.
A long time.
Yeah. What's next? Next for me is I get to host QED, which is happening in Manchester, which is the Question, Explore, Discover Skeptics Conference. They asked me to be the host of that, which I'm very excited, and I'm combining that with someone won the golden ticket from the Trebuchet release. I don't know if you heard about that.
I did hear about that. Was that on one of your podcasts? You mentioned that? I think I was listening, and it was where was it now?
Yeah, it was in Finland.
Finland.
Yes, of all places. Mika called me up and said, I won the golden ticket. Yeah. So I said, okay, I'm going to be...
And you said, you're there.
I'm there. That was the rule. Yeah. So, and combined with that, we'll do a show at Mika's place. But then a bunch of other Scandinavian skeptic groups have gotten in touch. And much like the Styrofoam Tour, they're just taking it by the reins and saying, okay, can you play here and here? That's February. Like middle of February.
If I won Lotto. So, I know where I would be in February if I win Lotto. I can tell you right now. That would be so exciting.
Yeah. I've never been to Sweden or Finland. I was in the airport in Finland for an hour once. But
yes. It doesn't count really.
Yeah, so to be in someone's home will be really cool, I think. I'm excited. So and to host, to be... I haven't compared or emceed one of these skeptic things yet, so I think that'll be really cool.
That'll be fun.
Yeah,
I really had a good time when we did our talk at TAM with the predictions.
Oh yeah, because
you and I didn't rehearse one line. No. Nothing. And I thought to myself, I don't have to rehearse with this guy.
No, you're very nice to trust me, but that was you're very trusting to trust me. It was a blast. I think people really dug it. Again, it was a different kind of a thing. It was fun.
Yeah.
Informative in that it reconfirmed that people that make predictions have no idea what they're talking about. But we sort of had fun with it, and people liked it.
We had fun with it, and of course, as we said at the time, it wrote itself.
Yeah.
Because all the silly lines were written by the people who think they have magical, mystical, psychic powers.
Exactly.
And then when you go back, of course, apart from getting ready to fly to Scandinavia, you've got to get stuck back into the Geologic podcast.
Yep, back on the podcast. We'll start churning those out again, and I'll start writing material, hopefully, for the next record.
Wow.
Well, it's
Wow.
That's the process. That's how it goes.
I've been seriously enjoying Trebuchet, and if listeners haven't downloaded Trebuchet, they can go to iTunes, right?
You can go to iTunes, but if you want to hear it for free, you can go to geologicpodcast.com, and show number 170 is the entire album for free, which you can hear. It's 71 minutes of music.
Yeah.
Totally free.
So download it, have a listen to it, and if you like it, buy the album.
Yeah, if you like one song, you can buy one song.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And you can listen to far as you can.
Far often as you like, yes.
As you can. George Hrab, what a pleasure it has been to host you here in Australia for part of your trip.
My pleasure.
It was one of the best ideas we had to bring you out, I think, because
you
certainly were one of the highlights of TAM Australia.
That's very sweet.
And there's no doubt in my mind that you're going to be back in this part of the world before too long.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This, true story. This is for Russell out there. All of the people who would rather be by themselves aren't inherently unhappy. I think I am the best. Let me get a few things off of my chest. You're confusing me. Because I stand alone with what you call a frown. Does not mean I'm stuck up. If If anything, I'm stuck down. I know, you think I am the shit. But the truth could not be much further from it. I'd rather have you wonder what I'm all about than open up my mouth and remove any doubts. Don't you assume you really know me. Don't you assume I'm sad and lonely. Don't wonder what I'm not revealing. The looks can be concealing after all. I know, you think I'm where it's at. But don't forget, I see myself as bald and fat. I promise you there is some more than what you see. But your assumptions tend to make an ass of just me. Don't you assume you really know me. Don't you assume I'm sad and lonely. Don't look for answers on the ceiling. Looks can be concealing. After all of the people who would rather be by themselves aren't inherently unhappy. So don't pile up your assumptions. You be the life of the party, and I'll be the party of my life. I'll be the party of my life. You can be the life, but I will party hard to be the party of my life. I know, you think my stank don't stink. I'm sorry, Mr. Gladwell, I'm more blank than blink. At first, the courses tend to become just desserts. I hope you'll stick around for seconds and maybe thirds. For seconds and maybe thirds. For seconds and maybe thirds. Don't you assume you really know me. Don't you assume I'm sad and lonely. You might find my thick skin appealing. Looks can be concealing after all. Looks can be concealing after all. Looks can be concealing after all of the people who would rather be by themselves aren't inherently unhappy. No, we're not.
This is an EVP I recorded last night.
How you doing? I'm a ghost. What's up?
You guys can't possibly ignore that type of it. Hey, who are you? What are you doing in my... Oh!
EVPs are the result of pareidolia and cross-modulation combined with the listener's hopes and expectations.
What does this have to do with science?
I think you just got skeptically pwned. Well, gotta go. See you in hell.
skepticallypwned.com.
Where false claims get kicked in the nuts.
Now it's time for Dr. Rachie Reports with Dr. Rachel Dunlop.
Hello listeners and welcome to Dr. Rachie Reports. Well, this week I attended a seminar from paediatric chiropractor Nimrod Weiner entitled Vaccinations Make an Informed Decision. Now this sounds like a loaded title, doesn't it? And it was, as you're about to find out. So to set the scene, the audience consisted of about 20 people, mostly women, several pregnant, and assorted couples with very young babies, most under the age of 2, gurgling in the background. Weiner started by saying that he was going to provide us with both sides of the story to vaccination. He acknowledged that vaccination is an emotive issue, but he asked that we do not let our emotions get in the way. And he was happy for dissenting views to be aired, but he would respect people for their views. He also said that he had been called anti-vaccination after giving some of his lectures, but that he was no such thing. So after detailing his qualifications, which include a master's in chiropractic and units of paediatric chiropractic, Nimrod emphasised he would stick to the science about vaccinations in an effort to arm parents with the ability to ask the right questions and weigh up the evidence from both sides. He said he approached his research from a logical and rational point of view, and his aim was to empower parents to make a good decision. He was also going to explain to us just how safe the diseases we vaccinate against actually are. So far this was sounding pretty anti-vaccination to me. I had so many red flags up, it could have been a flag convention or something like that. But finally we got on to vaccines, but his talk was still peppered with phrases such as leave out emotions and propaganda, respect critical thinking and analysis, yet then he immediately followed this with things like information about vaccines is laden with propaganda. Now, Weiner continued to emphasise that his information is based on current research and science, and further, he has spent more than 100 hours on this topic alone. Well, I reckon if you can count the number of hours you have spent on a topic, then you haven't spent nearly enough. And it doesn't matter if you've spent more than 100 hours, if you've read the wrong information from the likes of Joseph McCullough, Mike Adams, or the AVN, then you're not going to glean anything based on current research and science by the time you finish. Weiner then proposed something interesting. He said that no criticisms were allowed from the audience without an accompanying suggestion for improvement. But we'll get on to that a little bit later. It was here that I began to tally the number of times that Weiner said or referred to vaccines as injected into the bloodstream. Granted, the first time he did mention this, he said straight into the blood or a muscle, but then I ticked off at least 6 mentions of injected into the blood. Anti-vaxxers love to do this because it sounds so scary and evil. This is a misleading statement because vaccines are not injected directly into the bloodstream. So then we got some of the old anti-vax classic canards, including no one knows how long vaccines last, there is no guarantee of their effectiveness, antibodies play no role in immunity, and these diseases are designed to come into our bodies when we are kids, plus vaccines have never been tested. Weiner then went on to talk about pseudoscience, lack of ethics, and negligence associated with vaccine manufacturers and government health bodies. Now, some of his points here were quite valid, such as Big Pharma test the vaccines they make, hence there is a propensity to bias. Some government advisors have links to Big Pharma, suggesting a conflict of interest, and the TGA, the Therapeutic Goods Administration, doesn't independently test drugs. But then he went and undid all his good work by saying something like, no lot of vaccines have ever been recalled for increased adverse reactions. Lots that may have caused harm in children, they have never been taken off the shelf. In the whole history of the world, this has never happened. Oh, except in Western Australia with the recent flu vax reaction scare. So, Weiner scared parents into thinking that vaccine batches that may be faulty or cause increased adverse reactions are never ever recalled, except that one time when they were. He also claimed that parents are not told what to expect after vaccination. Now, I'm pretty sure everyone is told what to expect and even made to wait for at least 15 minutes in case of an immediate adverse event. So Weiner then cited deaths from vaccine-preventable diseases in Australia in the last decade and proposed reasons for the cause of death, since apparently the vaccine-preventable disease wasn't the cause of death. He then suggested that since the vaccination status of the dead was unknown, these people may have had other illnesses that contributed to their death. Also, they may have been Aboriginal, which is a population of people that suffer a greater incidence of disease than the rest of the country. They may have lived in unsanitary conditions, and perhaps they were in refugee camps. So in other words, any number of explanations, including they were somehow living in squalid refugee camps in Australia, could explain their death from vaccine-preventable diseases, because it certainly wasn't the disease that killed them. So as we moved into vaccine ingredients, I felt as if I was reading the AVN's page or something from Joseph McCullough, as Weiner listed all the scary chemicals in vaccines. There was no acknowledgement that the poison is in the dose, meaning small amounts of toxic substances are not necessarily poisonous. Neither did he mention that there are 2 types of mercury. The one that's in vaccines is much less toxic and doesn't bioaccumulate. We also got the usual suspects such as aborted human fetus, and he described in detail how aborted human fetus apparently ends up in the vaccine at the end of the processing, which is completely untrue. We also got thimerosal, aluminium, bacteria, formaldehyde, antifreeze, etc., etc. We were also reminded that although scientists say that vaccines are safe, they also said the same thing about asbestos, cigarettes, and thalidomide. So as expected, the old vaccines cause autism showboat was rolled out several times, and when myself and my colleague politely pointed out that Weiner should probably not be using Wakefield's Lancet paper, as evidence for such, he insisted that the science in the Wakefield paper was still valid. According to him, Wakefield was only in trouble for two things in regards to that paper. He didn't have ethics for taking the birthday party blood, and he paid the children for the blood. Otherwise, he claimed it was solid science. When my colleague gently pointed out that you generally have to do more than that to get struck off the UK medical register, Weiner said this was a political manoeuvre. So during this discussion, Weiner also stated that he had read the Lancet paper. Well, I propose he didn't read it properly because in his summary he wrote that it showed a link between MMR, the vaccine, and autism. But the Lancet paper doesn't address a connection between MMR and autism. This was suggested at a press conference after the paper was published. Now, when both my colleague and I informed Weiner that Wakefield was paid by lawyers to show a link between MMR and autism, and that he had a patent pending on a single measles vaccine, Weiner claimed he did not know anything about this. So whilst he was quite happy to throw mud at Big Pharma for bias, pseudoscience and vested interests, these same rules apparently do not apply to Wakefield. In fact, the Wakefield in the room was addressed several times, once by a lady inquiring about the Danish study, which was done on all children born in Denmark between January 1991 and December 1998, and it provided strong evidence against the hypothesis that MMR causes autism. Weiner said he had not heard of this study either, but he would be happy to see a copy. Then there was more vaccines cause autism evidence from Weiner in the form of an American Dental Association video showing a neuron dying in cell culture when incubated with mercury. However, the dose of mercury was not specified, how a cell in a dish is relevant to a child's brain was not discussed, and fortunately for us, the video stopped working halfway through. We were then told that vaccines are associated with shaken baby syndrome, SIDS, ADD, asthma, MS, suppress the immune system, and shift the balance for life. We were told that polio has not been eradicated in many countries, but has simply been renamed, I assume in an attempt to hide the ineffectiveness of the vaccine, by Big Pharma as flaccid aseptic meningitis or aseptic meningitis. We were also told that 1 in 2 people now have a chronic disease, herd immunity doesn't exist, and most childhood illnesses are self-limiting, rarely dangerous, and have few serious consequences. So after listening to this propaganda for 2 hours and asking a few polite questions here and there, I decided to offer Weiner some criticism with an accompanying suggestion for improvement. I asked Weiner why he didn't tell us from the very beginning that he was against vaccination. I suggested that he had not shown anything about the risk-benefit ratio of vaccination. That is, the risk of getting an adverse reaction to a vaccine is tiny compared to the risks associated with the disease. He said he was not anti-vaccination, but admitted that he would not choose to vaccinate. My suggestion for improvement, therefore, was that he inform people from the very beginning that he is against vaccination. My second criticism was that nowhere in his seminar had he addressed the issue of the seriousness of childhood diseases, and that as a paediatric chiropractor, it was irresponsible not to inform a room full of mums holding babies and pregnant women that there is currently an epidemic of pertussis, and pertussis kills babies. I suggested to Weiner that he had glossed over the seriousness of this disease and others, and whilst he spent a lot of time talking about vaccine reactions, he didn't even mention that in babies under the age of 2, pertussis can be fatal at worst and at best have complications such as pneumonia, broken ribs, hernias, vomiting after coughing, etc. My suggestion for improvement was that when there is an epidemic of a vaccine-preventable disease in our community, he might remind parents that they should not only vaccinate their children, but get their own booster shots as well. My final criticism was that he said that vaccines don't work because I can still get the disease even if I am vaccinated. My suggestion for improvement was that although a vaccine is not a force field, it can significantly reduce the severity of disease. So in kids who have had 2 or 3 shots for pertussis, they can still get the disease, but they have a reduced risk of getting complications and suffering long-term effects. It was at this point that a discussion ensued around the room in which one pregnant lady asked Weiner if there was a cure for whooping cough. She looked over to me, I shook my head, and Weiner confirmed this. She then asked Weiner which vaccines were important and which you could skip. As she listed them off, she said one thing that made me pause. She said something like, "Obviously I can't skip the pertussis vaccine, that disease sounds really bad." So maybe we achieved something today. For a paediatric chiropractor, I couldn't be more disappointed in Nimrod Weiner. He's a smart man who has studied extensively, but he sat in a room filled almost exclusively with pregnant women and parents with babies and scared them into not vaccinating. He told them never to get vaccinated if they are pregnant, no matter what they tell you. He cited studies that have been struck from the literature because they were found to be fraudulent, and he defended them when questioned. In the middle of a pertussis epidemic in which at least 3 babies have died in Australia and 10 have died in America, he told parents that childhood diseases are self-limiting and not very harmful. But worst of all, as we were gathering our stuff and about to leave, someone asked him a question about homeopathic vaccination. He said that although he wasn't a homeopath, he understood it worked like vaccines in that it contained a small amount of the infectious material, but it was safer because it didn't have the toxic chemicals that vaccines have. Ironic really that he said, "I'm not a homeopath," because he had just stood in front of us for 2 hours, spouting misinformation about vaccines, and never once did he say, "I'm not an immunologist or a medical doctor." He gave medical advice to pregnant women and parents, and much of it was wrong. I guess all I can hope is that myself and my colleague planted a seed in some people's minds today. We didn't give up on the Wakefield stuff when Weiner kept saying it was accurate. We didn't let it go when he kept saying it was good science. He told us he updates his slides every time he gives a talk, to which I suggested, next time you do that, remove the Wakefield one. Who knows if he will? At least he was willing to listen to our criticisms. Unlike some, he didn't have us ejected from the room as soon as we started to ask questions. But when someone who calls themselves a paediatric chiropractor and says homeopathic vaccination works and that Lancet paper is valid, well, it's time to notify the relevant authorities, especially when kids' lives are at risk. You can find this week's episode of Dr. Rachie Reports transcribed at skepticsbook.com as the Wakefield in the Room. And until next time, this has been Dr. Rachie Reports.
So that's why you can't eat it. I was just talking to the students here. Now look, I'm supposed to tell you about something. The Cosmic Tea Party, a new science podcast. Podcast? The hell is that? At any rate, it's about science and mathematics. Sounds rather dull. Oh, hang on. It says here, not dull. Well, so there you have it, the Cosmic Tea Party podcast. www.cosmicteaparty.org. Or search for them on iTunes.
Join us now for drinking skeptically in the think tank.
But it looks like I'm a super scientist.
And those dulcet tones come from our special guest here on the Think Tank tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, all the way, direct, well, sort of direct, from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, Northern Hemisphere, and all the rest of it, it's Fred Bremmer. Yay!
Hello.
Welcome to the Think Tank, Fred.
Thank you.
That's all we'll hear from Fred. Fred, you've been having a wonderful time, and I'll introduce the other think tankers soon. Basically coming out here for TAM.
Yes.
But also interacting and stalking SGU.
Well, I organized the Skeptic's Guide to the Universe live show in Vancouver, which also had George Hrab on the show. And then we all flew to Sydney together, and we were here for most of the week before TAM. I was here for TAM Australia, and afterwards I followed George to Brisbane and Melbourne and Adelaide and Canberra, and now I'm back here in Sydney for my last few days before I go home.
That's great. And of course, Fred, you're famous not only for having been to every SGU dinner,
right,
but for taking wonderful photographs around the place.
Thank you.
Even the moons of Jupiter.
I did, yes. I took pictures of the moons of Jupiter. People were surprised that I could do that with a handheld point-and-shoot camera.
And somebody who I know enjoys your photograph, our old friend Dianne. Hi, Dianne.
Hi, how are you, Richard?
I'm fine. You're with Little Nomington.
I am.
One of the Little Nomingtons.
That's right.
Is that Canadian Little Nomington?
I'm not too sure. Is it?
Oh, is it?
No, it's Victorian one.
It's Victorian.
Yes, I found some more Little Nomingtons when I was with you, Fred, in Victoria.
That's right. We took a day with Brian Dunning and Rebecca Watson and some of the Melbourne area skeptics.
Yeah.
Had a beautiful day at the
Hillsville Wildlife Park.
Sanctuary, yes.
Sanctuary, marvellous place.
It was.
It was good. And hello, Jessica Singer from the Australian Skeptics Committee, and who did so much hard work behind the scenes for TAM Australia.
Hi, Richard. How are you?
I'm fine. And thank you for your invaluable help, especially with that fabulous Skeptics in the Pub night.
Oh, it was a pleasure. It was such fun to organise, and I think everybody had a great time.
Yeah, everybody wearing their yellow armbands. That was good fun.
Oh, such a fashion statement. They were wonderful.
I only took mine off yesterday. And that insightful comment comes from none other than Dr. Rachie. Hi, Dr. Rachie.
Hi, Richard.
Welcome back to the Think Tank, and thank you for your wonderful Dr. Rachie reports about Nimrod.
Oh, yeah. Nimrod
The one
Wiener.
you're going to record.
Yeah. Nimrod Wiener, the chiropractor.
Yeah. Stop laughing.
That is not his real name.
It is. It is his real name. Nimrod Wiener.
And
Wiener. How would you pronounce it?
And almost falling off her chair, it's Joe Benhamu. Hi, Joe.
Hi, Richard.
Have you recovered from TAM yet?
I thought I had until about 2 minutes ago.
And last but not least, it's Eran Segev. Hi, Eran.
Hi, Richard.
Have you recovered from TAM yet?
I was jet-lagged until a couple of days ago, which is kind of strange considering the fact that I haven't left Sydney in months.
You know, that's interesting. I think I was too. I was waking up at odd hours. And
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. Waking up at like 3 in the morning, 5 in the morning.
Yeah.
It's the jet lag I didn't have when coming back from TAM in Vegas. It's the jet lag I didn't have. It's the jet lag I didn't have when going to Israel and back. I definitely had it now for a whole week. It's just like I was tired during the day. I was awake at night.
Yeah.
It was just completely strange.
Well, for the four of us here, and Tim Mendham's not here with us, but the four of us on the TAM committee, it was an extraordinary time, wasn't it? The whole, leading up to it was extraordinary enough, but actually, I remember thinking when Paul Willis announced that, welcome to TAM, I thought, it's here.
Yeah.
It was surreal, wasn't it?
Yeah. I think none of us could wipe the grins off our faces to actually sort of see it come to fruition. It was quite spectacular.
Yeah. And then we were running around like purple flashes for the next 3 days.
Yes, in our Tinky Winky outfits.
Yeah, but I want to tell you about something that I did this week. I'm not sure. You might need to edit it out because I did something that would be considered obscene by our standards of the last 3 months. I read a book.
No, I got to edit that out. You read a book?
I don't believe
I read a book,
you.
not the whole book, but I actually took a book from my increasingly large pile of books on my bedside table, and I actually started reading a book.
Good heavens.
I'm feeling very proud of myself.
I bought a copy, this is my second copy now, of Flim Flam, and I had Randy sign it for me. And I realised it must be 15 years since I've read Flim Flam. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to set aside some time and reread Flim Flam.
Well, I think last time perhaps on the podcast, I'm not sure, but I'd started reading Fads and Fallacies, and it's been a couple of months. I'm still reading Fads and Fallacies.
I started a new Twitter hashtag last night. It's called Life After TAM Oz.
Really?
Yeah, because yesterday I went to the hairdressers and I met this really nice lady and we had a nice little chat, and then I came home and there was a giant leaf in my bathtub and I just tweeted that because it's just, I saw that.
Everyday life.
It's everyday life again now, It's like I went...
Exciting thing that happened all week.
Yeah, and then I hashtagged it Life After, #TAMOz. So maybe other people would like to contribute to Life After TAMOz.
Have you noticed in the week after TAM how many people were hashtagging TAMOz saying, I'm a bit lost, what's going on, where's the pub nights?
But the TAMOz feed on Twitter is still going strong.
Still going, yeah.
So it's nice to see. I actually had dinner with my husband and it wasn't interrupted by a meeting on Skype.
Well, that's been our life for the last 3 or 4 months at least. Regular meetings on TAM, and then stretching beyond that, organising and wondering. You remember that meeting that the three of us had here in this very club about...
over a year and a half.
And then we were setting out the program, the initial program.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's
Even that meeting was like 3 hours or something.
Mm-hmm. Remember, you and we were doing scouting around downtown so we could make that map that was in TAM, so with Randy saying, "You are here," and all the rest of it. And so if people wanted to go to the internet somewhere or to a pharmacy, little things like that, you know.
Maybe you want to tell the listeners that you're actually pointing at Jessica.
I'm sorry.
This is an audio format.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Hi, Jessica. Thank you for your help again.
You are most welcome, Richard. Yes, we had a good time, didn't we, finding coffee shops.
Yeah.
And you found a very good pharmacy for TAM.
Oh, Woo's Pharmacy.
I wonder if anyone visited Woo's Pharmacy during TAM. I tell you what I did yesterday, too. I blogged. Oh, my God.
I know, I saw you blogged.
You did.
I haven't, seriously, I don't think I've blogged for like 5 months because even the last few months have just been mental. But even before that, I was in the States 3 times this year and for work and stuff, so I haven't even had time to blog. So, yeah, the Nimrod Wiener report I did earlier is what is funny about that? It's a person's name.
Now,
That's the only thing that's not depressing about this guy.
read Dr. Rachie's blog. Of course, Dr. Rachie reports. You would have heard it earlier in the show. Somebody who can't be here tonight with a funny name is our good friend Maynard. And Maynard, my dear friends, in the next few weeks you'll be treated to some wonderful interviews that Maynard conducted at TAM with James Randi, Dick Smith, yourself. I'm pointing to Rachel. I'm pointing to Joe.
I listened. I had a sneak preview, listeners, to some of the stuff that Maynard's done. It's just so good.
It's good.
He did an interview with Jay Novella and Bob Novella. I don't know if Evan was on it as well, but just talking to them sort of off the cuff, and the not the way you hear them on SGU, where it's a bit more formal. It's just very relaxed, and he puts questions to them that they haven't heard before, so they've got to answer straight up, and it's really, really nice. Like, he's just done such a great job, and I think we're going to have like a lot of stuff for shows coming up.
Yeah, the next weeks of the Skeptic Zone will have wonderful interviews from TAM conducted by Maynard, who's certainly proved himself, and it wasn't necessary, to be a great interviewer.
Oh yeah, fantastic.
Very lively and funny, but insightful as well.
Did he end up interviewing Brian Dunning?
Yes.
Because he wanted to speak about all kinds of conspiracy theories.
He did. He and Brian are firm friends now. It's really funny. But anyway, Maynard sent us a letter. He sent us an email to say, sorry, he says, sorry, can't make it tonight, but the ABC, he works for the ABC, the broadcasting, thinks my talents are best used interviewing members of the local clergy about the true meaning of Christmas. I think he'd rather be here.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No.
I'd like to thank everybody at TAM, and especially all the people who took time to chat into my microphone. You'll hear the results in coming weeks on the Skeptic Zone, as we've said. Great. The interviews with Dick Smith and Julian Morrow are already up at the ABC website, so Google Maynard and their names and you'll find it. So I recommend everybody do that. Next, Maynard's Malays podcast will be out in the coming days and will feature musical requests from TAM participants, all except the Polish heavy metal request, as I just couldn't find them anywhere. Also in the coming weeks is a very Maynard Christmas show on the same podcast feed at my website. So Maynard, thanks very much. Oh, one last thing he says. 2 last things. Some zombies are science and evidence based.
Okay.
Great. D.B. Cooper is still alive. UFOs are a real phenomenon that should not be dismissed out of hand. Have one on me and a drink too. Love, Maynard.
Well, I think our listeners might notice there's a definite lack of the usual clinking that goes along with the think tank.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, we have a private room, but we're not allowed to bring drinks or food in here. But at least it's a private room and it's nice and quiet. Folks, check out Maynard's website, maynard.com.au. Fred.
Yes.
Say something while I look for another email. Actually, Fred was telling me, we had a nice walk, you and me and Jamie, the other day through the botanics, and you were chatting to me, and I'd like you to give the listeners just a little rundown of your skeptical activities in Vancouver, especially with Skeptics in the Pub.
Right.
Which sounds very successful to me.
Yes, I think we're doing well with Skeptics in the Pub in Vancouver. We have 3 events a month going on now in the Vancouver area. The one that I started was from about 4 years ago. I created the Facebook page, and it's been growing since then. We have almost 370 members of that Facebook group, and we get a good turnout every month. We expanded earlier this year, I believe, to a second location inside Vancouver, and since then CFI Vancouver has taken the Skeptics in the Pub model and replicated that in Richmond, just outside of Vancouver where the airport is. And all of those groups are having 20, 40, sometimes even 60 people come out, and it's going quite well.
Now, you were one of the first people, I think, to email me pictures of origami Pegasus at Skeptics in the Pub.
Yeah, that's one of the things we've done there. Mostly it's a social event. We sometimes have a speaker at our Skeptics in the Pub nights. Sometimes I show a video or a TAM DVD clip. But mostly that's just for people to get together and talk with like-minded like-minded skeptics. There are other groups in Vancouver that are doing more like scientific presentations. There's a Café Scientifique group that brings in a local scientist or science expert or grad student to talk about their area of research, and that's a half hour or so presentation followed by questions and answers from the general public.
Wow,
So
you guys are really active.
Yeah, we cross-promote those activities at our social nights, and CFI Vancouver has been very active over the last couple of years with bringing speakers to town, such as Lawrence Krauss and P.Z. Myers were a couple of the larger events we've had.
Harriet Hall has spoken
Harriet
for
Hall
you?
has come up a couple of times to talk about pseudoscience and medical
And Fred was actually telling me the other day that he's at his own expenses flying the whole Skeptic Zone team there to do a special live recording.
I missed that memo.
No, so it was certainly. I have a lot of good friends in Canada, right across the whole country from the skeptical world. And, boy, anytime you'll want to pitch in to bring us over, we'll be there, I promise you. I don't care if it's in the middle of winter.
Well, yeah, I would like to let people know that if they are passing through Vancouver, we'd be happy to put together an impromptu Skeptics in the Pub, CFI Vancouver. Like I said, they've been doing lecture series, having some big-name speakers come through. They also have a book club. They did Carl Sagan's Demon Haunted World. No, I think it was Contact was the one.
Contact,
they did Contact for November for Carl Sagan Day. It was around the same time. So we've got lots of different activities for people to participate in.
What's the best website for people to find out about the Skeptics in the Pub and what you're up to? Is it a meetup? Would they just Google Vancouver Skeptics in the Pub and that would sort them out?
The group that I put out events for, that's on Facebook. If you just search on Facebook for Vancouver Skeptics in the Pub. I should know the URL for
That's all right.
I believe it's CFI Canada. Oh,
it doesn't matter because that's why they invented Google.
Yes.
So we don't have to remember URLs.
If you search for CFI Vancouver, that should get you there, yes.
Delighted to know that you're so active, Fred. Really, we met each other on the amazing adventure north to Alaska.
Yes, the cruise from Vancouver up to Alaska.
Yeah,
that was a lot of fun.
Memorable, wasn't it?
Yes, James Randi was on that, and
Phil
Plate, Rebecca Watson, some other people. Yes.
Yeah, Jeff Wagg was there.
Yes, Hal Bidlack.
A lot of our friends, a lot of the people now I regard as friends who I'd never met before. Of course, like yourself.
Right.
So
yes, that was a great way to get to know some of the active skeptics from other parts of the world.
That was a fantastic time. That's what I like about the skeptical world, the socialism? The social aspects are great. The socializing, thank you.
Yes.
Not the socialism.
No, that's what we emphasize in Skeptics in the Pub. I think a lot of people are happy to find other people who think like them or who will challenge them, criticize them if they disagree, and do it in a nice way. Exactly.
We hope so.
Yes.
Can I ask something with regards to Skeptics in the Pub in Vancouver, do you have a speaker, or is it just like, because there's kind of two different movements, I would say, with the Skeptics in the Pub. There's the drinking skeptically ones, where it's just completely social, nothing at all in terms of content, and there's the one where there's a speaker or perhaps a debate about something.
Right. Ours is mostly the social side. We do have a time in every Skeptics in the Pub night where we'll go through a list of other upcoming events like Café Scientifique, like CFI's lecture series, the book club, and let people know about that. Occasionally someone will have a topic that they want to present on, but generally it's just talking over drinks. I bring some copies of skeptical magazines to put out on the tables for people to look at. We have posters for upcoming events. We've done a few trivia contests, and those have been fun.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, we even had one.
Your brother's organising one for us.
Oh, good.
Yeah, we had one between Edmonton and Vancouver, and we were comparing scores with Edmonton over Skype.
Sorry, Fred, I'm being heckled. Because they've just reminded me that my brother is in fact organising a trivia night for skeptics, and I completely forgot. Thank you, hecklers in the audience over there. Oh, that's great. Now, I've got another email just came in today, and I thought I'd give it a quick read. Jason from Fairbanks in Alaska, speaking of North to Alaska with James Randi. He's writing to me. He listened to the recent episode of the Skeptic Zone where I briefly mentioned the Bent Spoon Award, and the runner-up was Fran Sheffield from Homeopathy Plus. And she wanted to send lots of homeopaths to Haiti. And, gee, wouldn't they work well there? But Jason points out homeopathy does work, at least when it's applied to homeopaths. The fewer homeopaths per capita of sick people, the more likely the sick people are to get better.
I love that.
Joe's laughing to herself over there. Thank you, Jason. I thought that was quite funny.
Can I make a comment about what Fred was saying with the activism or the activity happening in Canada? One of the things that really came out of the correspondence post-TAM, I've noticed, and you guys probably have too, that a lot of people have been really motivated by TAM. And there's now Jason Brown, who is not here tonight, but he's usually on the think tank. He, during his skeptical activism panel, he apparently said if I had some money, I'd set up a skeptic camp in Sydney, and someone threw $50 at him. And so now he's got 6 months and $52 because Travis gave him $2. Travis Roy.
Travis.
To set up a skeptic camp in Sydney. And he said he'd do it, so he's going to do it.
Right. Yeah, I was giving him some tips. We've done 4 of them in Vancouver now, and we've got some experience to share. I'd be happy to help.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And lots of other people have said they've become really motivated. And Joe, have you?
From my own side of things, and I haven't really gotten my wheels turning to get this moving yet, but one of the things that came out is I was approached by a number of nurses who were at TAM, and I'm going to be setting up a skeptical nurses group, which is going to be starting out probably on Facebook, just so we can do a bit of networking and get in touch.
SNG,
and then
Skeptical Nurses Group?
I haven't decided yet. I
I want to do the same with IT people.
With IT people, good luck. You're going to be swamped from the hands that went up at TAM.
You mean SIT? Sit.
Anyway, I just really want to start networking with the nurses out there, because I think there's actually a lot more nurses out there than I certainly realised who have a bit of a sceptical mindset.
Or who are just annoyed at what's going on, do you think?
Look, it's hard to say. It's until you really get in contact with people, it's hard to really know, and you can't really go from a group of 4 nurses to know whether that reflects the pulse of the nursing community.
The pulse of the nursing
So yeah, I'll be starting out by setting up a Facebook group. I've had a number of people contact me already, and then we'll look at what we really want to do with that and where we want to take it. But I think just that's where I find events like TAM are just fantastic, because you just meet people who you find share a similar career or a similar interest or a cause that you share an interest in, and without having those people to network with and share ideas with, you're likely to just sit at home thinking about it.
I agree totally, and I'm really looking forward to TAM 9. I must say, not because I won't be running around like a nut like the four of us were, with our purple shirts trying to organise things, just to meet lots of people again, and I'm really looking forward to that. But I'm really encouraged about what you say, Joe. So if you're a nurse or you know a nurse and they maybe are a bit of a sceptical mind, they can contact Jo, and her email address is jo@skepticzone.tv.
That's it, yep. And I'd like to hear from anyone, so just get in touch and we'll take it from there.
Also, Richard, we haven't had time to blog about TAM yet, but other people have, and there's some really great blogs out there and articles written about the weekend. Particularly, I wanted to mention Chris Stevenson's article, which came out today. She did a great sort of juxtaposition of George Pell, who's a Catholic Archbishop in Sydney, and apparently the same weekend that we were having TAM in the Masonic Centre, he was in St Mary's Cathedral saying that godless people are akin to Nazis or some...
Basically, we're incapable of doing good, really.
We're incapable of doing good.
Unlike the Catholic Church.
Yeah, I mean, the hypocrisy is just astounding. It's like burning stupid,
Chris just did a fabulous job of highlighting, some of the good work that was being done by skeptics, such as the Stop the AVN, whose whole motivation is to protect children from harm.
Yeah.
And if that's, that's the work of a bunch of godless... so-and-sos.
There you go.
And she also mentioned you, Joe, as well. And she mentioned Loretta as well as somebody who's, written 800 complaints about quack, devices that are targeted at people with cancer or who have had cancer. So that's at onlineopinion.com.au. There's already one Christian who's commented there and rapidly got slapped down by somebody else. So I recommend you look at the comments. Also, Lucas Randall has written...
Good old Lucas Randall, good friend of the Skeptic Zone.
He's a great friend of ours.
Yeah.
He gave us a camera.
He did.
So we love Lucas.
That lovely Canon camera, which I use frequently. You bet,
So he's blogged about it, and a New Zealand skeptic, Robin Kappa, as well. I can't think of any more off the top of my head.
If people just Google TAM Australia blog or opinion, they'll find something. A range of comments. A range of comments about TAM Australia.
And also I recommend people do a search of Flickr, in particular Ruth Ellison's pictures are
wonderful,
beautiful.
Wonderful.
Of course, Fred Bremmer's pictures are just stupendous.
I haven't put them up on Flickr yet, but I'll try to do that as soon as I can.
Please, yes.
Yeah, and I also just wanted to mention that I think kind of the vision that we had for TAM at the beginning was we wanted to sort of brand it so that whenever you'd see photographs of it, you knew it was TAM Australia. We didn't just want to see a black curtain behind
James
speakers
and
who's that guy?
Well, what TAM is at. It could be Vancouver, it could be Vegas. We wanted to really brand this so that people would know it's
Sydney.
It's Sydney, and I think if you look at some of the photos, you'll see that I think we really achieved that. And
I think so.
Although people were sort of laughing about us using the Masonic Centre, some of the pictures of the ceilings and the big G, they're just stunning.
Gio said it was stood for him, of course.
Yes. Well, of course it stood for him, because it's all about him, isn't it?
Now, just a very quick mention. The listeners who heard the Skeptic Zone live from TAM and were a little bit disappointed with the quality, I've subsequently reloaded that episode with proper quality. Proper. As from the microphones, not from the little recorder I used. So we all sound very nice. Yeah.
And like intelligent and stuff.
And like intelligent and stuff, yeah.
Awesome.
We're all still getting over it, aren't we? But in a good way.
Can I just say something else? I think the responses I got from a lot of the speakers really blew me away. Yeah. And I shared a cab home with Paul Willis on a couple of nights because we lived down the road from each other.
Yeah.
Our MC. Yeah, and the last time he was kind of involved with Australian Skeptics was maybe 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And he was blown away.
By the change?
But also the positive change.
Yes.
He said everything that he saw that weekend was about doing things as a group to get positive change. So whether that's the AVN or Loretta or Simon Singh. And so he really came away from that inspired. And in fact, inspired enough, Richard, that he is now on Twitter. And he said to me he would never go on Twitter because it's a waste of time and what does it mean and what's it about. But he's now on Twitter.
It's Fossil Crocs, isn't it?
Fossil Crocs, yeah, with an X.
Because he's a paleontologist and he studied crocodiles.
I have to say, actually, that one of my when I think back on the weekend and about my favourite moments, other people actually got to watch this, but one of my favourite moments about Tam was being sent down to Chinatown by Paul Willis to go and buy a duck and some chicken's feet. Which, those of you who were there and saw it will have seen Paul dismember a cooked duck to demonstrate how a duck is a dinosaur. And, one day when the DVD comes out, I'm sure you'll all be able to
I missed that too
it.
because I was busy myself, but I'm very much looking forward to that. It sounds a bit indulgent, but I think one of the lasting things I'll remember of Tam was, it sounds a bit funny to say my talk, but only because I was doing it with George Hrab. And I was just such a pleasure to share the stage with George Hrab. He was so funny. I was in stitches up there. So that was a great little memory for me to take away from Tam Australia.
For me, I think one of the highlights has to be the quiz. That was just...
Rebecca's
quiz was let me tell listeners how that happened, because in fact that wasn't on the program because we had a speaker drop out. And it was probably about 2 minutes before that started that Rebecca said she was going to do the tweets, and I knew that actually you could only have 100 connections in that room before the internet would break. And so literally maybe 2 minutes before it started, I went up to Carlo, who's the AV guy, and I said, can you somehow make it so that Rebecca's tweet stream doesn't break, because that's really important. Everyone else's we'd rather it didn't, but it's not so critical. And he tethered his phone to her laptop in about 20 seconds, just before we started, so that she would have a completely safe internet connection.
I didn't know that.
No, not many people know that. And I was sitting there because I thought, God, if this crashes halfway through, it's gonna be really bad. So I just went, Carlo, and he's like, right, fixed, done.
Well, I think on that note, we all know what the word for the weekend was at TAM, thanks to Rebecca's Twitter feed.
Oh, somebody tweeted that just today, I think, or yesterday, just for old time's sake. Just boobs, Tam Oz, hashtag. Do you want to explain to the listeners, Joe, what that means?
I think I'll let you explain.
Well, of course, for those of you who weren't there, what happened with Rebecca's quiz was she had a panel which was mostly STU and George Hrab, and then she would ask questions of the panel and the audience, and the panel can answer just by speaking into the mic.
Oh, no, they had to go through Geo. Only Geo was allowed to answer.
That's right. So they could discuss amongst themselves, and then Geo would answer, and the audience would just tweet the answers, and Rebecca had a tweet deck column on the big screen. So, of course, before we even started, people were just saying, hi, Mum, testing, and then someone said boobs, and then someone else was saying... But the thing that was so funny about it was, for example, one of the questions was something like, what's the most dangerous animal, or the animal that causes the most deaths in Australia or something. And so there was Meryl Dorey, Tony Abbott, and boobs.
So the audience was just in raptures, just looking at the screen, let alone from Geo's answers.
Because there'd be this sort of suspenseful pause as Rebecca read out the question, and then this explosion of tweets as you'd get these ridiculous answers, and obviously some correct answers. And then there was drop bears and the hoop snake and stuff that was just completely made up.
It was brilliant. I mean, the crowd were just in stitches.
It was hilarious. And I think Lucas Randall wrote that he had a hernia during that. And in fact, he wrote on one of his blogs that the guy in front of him got up and left because Lucas was laughing too loud. But that was just
I think that's going to have to be a highlight for every TAM now.
What about Dianne and Jessica? What were your highlights?
Dead silence. Well, I really, really loved Pamela Gay's talk.
I missed that too.
I thought it was I thought it was great, and she was talking about the citizen science projects, and it was just fantastic.
Yeah. I've seen Pamela talk before, and I can't wait to see this one on the DVD. She's wonderful speaker.
Yes, I think I went to pretty much all the talks, but I'm really looking forward to seeing the parallel sessions that I didn't see on the DVD.
Right. Yeah. Did you get to many of those, Dianne?
I got to some of them, but my highlight was really Dr. Carl Kruzelnicki's talk.
Oh, yes.
It was so full of enthusiasm and energy, and I think that was one of the highlights for me. Yeah.
Fred?
Yes. Well, yeah, I heard a lot of Australian speakers that I didn't know of before. Dr. Carl, Rob Morrison.
Oh, he was great. Wasn't he great?
They were. I wasn't familiar with them from before, so it was completely new to me. I thought the Harbour Cruise was a great experience. It was beautiful scenery, a great bunch of people, open bar. It was a good time.
My personal highlight was on the last 3 hours of Sunday. I had about, in excess of 50 people come to me personally. Some of them were just standing aside while I was talking to somebody else and then waited until there was a moment and just shook my hand and said, thank you, it has been absolutely fantastic. Or later on, some people who wrote, I probably got so far something like 70 or 80 emails, I have to count them, to my personal email, from people saying the same thing. People saying, look, I stood there on Sunday wanting to say something, but you were busy talking to lots of other people. And then there's the two things that two speakers said that really struck a chord with me. One was in the cool-down event that we had for speakers after TAM, Pamela said that it changed her view of skeptical events. And the positive message, the positive attitude, the variety of different topics covered, the fact that it was not just about hardcore skepticism or about anything in particular, that it was just general things that interest skeptics. She said that that's really changed the way she perceives these kind of events. And Rob Morrison, who sent me an email saying, thanks to the entire TAM team, I meant what I said from the stage. I have never enjoyed a conference more. So, that's to me, that's it. That's what you do things like that for.
Yeah, well, Rob Morrison was heckling from the side of the stage in the end, wasn't he?
Actually, I have to say that was also one of my highlights because, I came to Australia when I was 10 years old in the mid-'80s, and one of my earliest experiences of Australia was of watching Rob Morrison and the Curiosity Show. Yeah. So it was like, for me, I felt like a kid again standing next to Rob Morrison, who's incredibly tall. Yeah. And just sort of reliving my childhood, and that was for me one of my highlights.
But he does a wonderful talk, doesn't he?
Yeah. Oh, he's and just lovely.
He's a lovely, lovely man.
You and I, Rachel, had the pleasure of visiting his house a year or so ago.
Yeah, and he gave us a dozen chicken eggs.
You did. That's how nice. That's how nice he is. Well, folks, as I was saying, we will never forget TAM Australia. That's for sure. I'm looking forward to the next TAM in Las Vegas to see all our friends again. We can't clink our glasses because we weren't allowed to bring them into the room. But I'd like to say thank you, one and all, for joining me tonight in the Think Tank. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Clap our little I'm clinking my glasses.
Put them back. Thank you, Dianne. Thank you.
Astronomy Cast takes a facts-based journey through the cosmos as it offers listeners weekly discussions on astronomical topics ranging from planets to cosmology. Hosted by Fraser Kane of Universe Today and myself, Dr. Pamela Gay of Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville, this show brings the questions of an avid astronomy lover directly to an astronomer. Together, Fraser and I explore what is known and being discovered about the universe around us. Join us each week as we take a facts-based journey through the cosmos at astronomycast.com.
Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone, episode 112. And as always, a big thank you to those people kind enough to donate to the Skeptic Zone to help us keep it going, and to those people who simply chip in $1 a week. And you can do that by visiting www.skepticzone.tv and click the link to subscribe. $1 a week, less than a cup of coffee, as they say. You wouldn't get much coffee for $1. Well, until next week's show, this is Richard Saunders signing off from San Francisco, California.
You've been listening to The Skeptic Zone. Visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for comments, contacts, and extra video reports.
The Skeptic Zone.